From the backwoods and the swamp waters of the Sunshine State and all across America and the world, this is the Big and Wild Outdoors.
Hey everybody, welcome in. It is the Big and Wild Outdoors. I'm Braden Gunn, that's Captain Vince Noble.
Morning.
And we're out at a very special place today, and we're going to be talking to a very special individual that's been in our lives for a very long time. And sadly, he's going to be moving out of state, and we're going to miss him a lot. But
we have a place to go.
This is a place that he actually created, and we'll talk more about that when we get there. But that's why this chair is empty and waiting, because, as you know, we've said it many times on this show, Bill George is that way.
Somewhere.
He's up in
someplace.
He's up in Pennsylvania. It's turkey season up there, and we're not going to see him for probably another
month.
2 or 3 weeks. Because then, as you pointed out, gator season's going to be starting, and he'll be gone. He'll be,
August 15th?
Yeah, somewhere around there. But it's going to be strange. But we'll talk to this gentleman a little bit later on.
This is week number 2 with Hollywood.
It is.
What's going on? Toby Benoit last week. This week, Mr. Hollywood himself.
I know. It's like we're hanging out with movie stars and celebrities all of a sudden.
That's how we roll on the Big and Wild.
Well, it falls on us. I don't know if we roll. It keeps falling onto us, but it is where it is. But just so you know where we are, we're in a place called Parrish, Florida, which used to be out in the country and out in the boonies, but this area, this neck of the woods, is just growing by leaps and bounds. I mean,
it's ridiculous.
Subdivisions, housing developments, grocery stores, you name it, it's all coming.
It's gone from country to almost a concrete jungle.
Yeah.
It's sad.
And that's one of the reasons why the individual that we're speaking to is going to be zippity-doo-dah right out of here. And not only that, but also a lot more acting and opportunities in the area that he's going to be heading into.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that those areas have switched. Like, Florida and Miami used to be the big hubs, and now it's moving up to like Georgia, Tennessee, and those areas.
Yeah.
It's just weird how the pendulum swings.
Well, Orlando used to be the hub too, but
Yeah.
it was mostly Nickelodeon type stuff and things like that. And I will say this, that the guy we're talking to back many moons ago when we were on the radio together, when we still had newspapers in the studio, I was looking through and there was an ad. It wasn't a big ad, it was maybe a 2x2, and it said actors wanted for roles for an upcoming pirate movie. And it was an agency in Orlando
For Pirates of the Caribbean.
And so I said, man, you ought to go audition for this. You really should. You should do it. You got the look, with the hair, kind of, grizzly kind of guy, get out of the cowboy mode and go do that. I said, you should at least go audition. He's like, nah, I don't want to do that. Turns out it was Pirates of the Caribbean.
Wah, wah. And,
of course, a lot of those pirates are in, like, the next 3 movies.
Of course.
Or at least the first 2, and then they changed and then went back. So I was like, dude, do you know how many millions of dollars you'd have probably...
Well, I'm not going to say who, but for all you QYK listeners out there that used to listen to the show in the morning...
That's the old radio station, WQYK 99.5 FM, yeah.
I'm just going to drop a little hint, and if you know it, you know it. If you don't, you just don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, you don't know. Well,
Cowboy poetry. That's all I'm going to say.
If you've watched some of the past shows, either on Carbon TV or on UCTV Channel 3, you'll know that this is the neck of the woods where Vince was when he rescued the cow.
Yep.
And when he brought up the individual that he was speaking to, and he said, "Oh yeah, I know who you are. I know
right around the corner. Yeah.
I know Braden, and I know Les that lives right down the road here, and all that stuff." So he's like, "What? You know these guys?" He goes, "Oh yeah, man, I've known them." So we're in that neck of the woods. So we've spent a lot of time here, and we'll get more into that as the show goes on. But sadly, we have to report this past week that another individual lost their lives to an alligator.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And what really kind of shocked me on the story was, one, it happened in the same area as the last one with the kayaker.
But isn't that, it's what I've noticed with that area, though, it's a high breeding ground.
Well,
and at this time of year, they shouldn't have people on that area, kayaks or canoes or anything.
Well, how do you stop people?
You get eaten?
Well, you got Tiger Lake, you have Tiger Creek, and that connects into
Lake Kissimmee.
Lake Kissimmee. So that's a big thing. A lot of people who live or have vacation homes or whatever around Tiger Lake, they jump on there and they go down the creek, and when they get to Kissimmee, they either turn around or go do some fishing and go back.
Well, at least put warning signs up, mating season or, high whatever, just to kind of give it like the stingray shuffle. We know the stingrays are there, be careful. Well, they need to kind of do more of a learning atmosphere in that specific area.
Well, that was going to be one of my points, but what happened was apparently a husband and wife were out in a canoe, and they were going through Tiger Creek and going through there, and they were in shallow water. And as we talked about on a previous show, this is one of those things where the people were doing everything right, and it just happened to be where they went over the alligator, and apparently the canoe either touched the alligator because they were in shallow water, and of course it thrashes, it freaks out, it tips the canoe over. Well, obviously she's in the front, and she lands right on top of the alligator, which now the alligator assumes is a threat or whatever, and does what it's going to do. The husband tried to intervene, but
at that point, sometimes it's a little too late.
It's an 11-foot alligator, and you're not going to win.
I mean, trust me, it's a sad thing, but I really think the FWC needs to step up with some more education in that specific area.
This was going to be one of the points I was going to bring up. As sad as it is, one, as you've seen on this previous show before, a good set of polarized lenses in your sunglasses or your glasses themselves would have let you probably seen the alligator laying on that water, especially if it's that shallow, that you would have seen and said, honey, there's a big old gator laying here on the bottom.
Yeah.
Let's not go over him. That would have solved problem number one. Problem number two is what you're saying is education.
It's a huge thing.
The FWC does a very good job, but if you're not on their newsletter or you're not tagged on their Facebook page or whatever, or any of that stuff, you're not going to know. They don't put it on the local news. Hey, let's not forget now it's alligator season, and you got to be a little more safe.
It's not a gigantic area, so go old school with it. Go to the community instead of relying on social media and Facebook and YouTube and the local news. Go to the community. Go door to door if you have to in the community.
Apparently the couple was from Davenport, which is out closer to Orlando. It's where the old boardwalk and baseball used to be out there. Yeah. So they're not familiar with that area. What you're saying is, trust me, everybody who's around that Lake Wales area, all that area, they know. And they know. They've been there. So these people, I don't know if they grew up in Florida or they moved here from New Hampshire. I don't know, and they decided to go on a jungle cruise or whatever. But if you don't educate yourself on the place where you live, especially in the state of Florida, a lot of that fault's got to lie on you.
Yeah.
I mean, it seriously does. Yeah. Vince will tell you where we are today. We'll show you some of the area. This is an old movie set and television set for shooting television shows. There's wood laying around. There's trees down. There's all this stuff. And I know, and I know, growing up here, there's a rattlesnake in here somewhere.
No, I probably 5 feet from us right
here. So you don't go messing with stuff because you know it's there.
Yep.
And we've told you on this show, we've told people on the radio all the time for years, if you're going to be near fresh water, just assume there's an alligator in that water.
Anywhere, at any given time.
Any given time.
Agreed.
And the problem is one, not having the proper equipment when you're going out and being on the water. Hence, lenses, whatever. Two, not knowing where you're going and knowing what could potentially be in that area. Especially if it's an area where an alligator attacked a month earlier.
2 months ago?
A month just before, 3 or 4 weeks before. So you got to know where you're going, know what you're doing, and not just be some willy-nilly tourist who's just going to throw
splash around in the water and
Exactly.
we're gonna have a fun day. It doesn't happen, and people don't realize it. They don't think about it, and just to be honest, people are just lazy.
With the amount of people that are moving into this state, seriously, it's kind of slowing down a little, but now we're down to about 1,000 a day. But you just come here because it's paradise, or you came down during spring break and got drunk with your friends on Clearwater Beach, and you just assume that the rest of the state is that way. It's not that way.
Yeah.
You get out here to where we are, where it used to be, let's say 10 years ago, there's bears, there's deer, there's doves, there's hogs.
There's all kinds of things.
And then there's the other things that you don't see. And you just have to assume that they are there. Rattlesnakes, coral snakes, copperhead maybe, black widows, green widows. I mean...
See, the spiders, I'd be more worried about spiders than snakes.
Well, spiders you don't really know until you put a shirt on and you're like, ow,
Yeah.
what the hell just bit me?
Like
Damn it.
last week, I think it's either a spider or those carpenter ant. Or
No, it was a
stick
stick ant got you.
Good Lord, man.
One got me.
I was sitting
Still
there.
there. It's
Yeah, mine's
right
actually gone. I was fussing around on that show.
because they sting like a wasp.
Yeah.
But again, if you don't know what they are, you might want to look that up before you get here. If I was going to go travel to Australia and I would be like, people were like, it's a dangerous place. I've heard about it all my life. Maybe I should learn about things. And so when you're walking through the woods, you may look like a tourist when you go, hey, is that a brown snake? Shouldn't we be worried about that? Oh, no, that's a Digionoldigo snake. He's okay. Well, I don't know, so I'm just assuming.
I'm going to ask 100 stupid questions all day long.
Exactly.
So you were talking about the water being shallow. We are in a little bit of a drought. I know the Everglades
Big
now
drought.
are 12 inches below normal right now of the drought, which also makes me wonder, because we talked about the Burmese pythons. Are they running? Are they moving now because they're
I'm
looking
sure.
for water? So now would be an actual good time to go hunt them because they're looking for the water. They're moving around a lot.
And they're on dry land, so it's easier to find them.
Yeah.
But the other thing during the drought is you have to assume that alligators are all on the move. If that pond dries up,
They're moving
he's
somewhere.
going to go find water. So where there wasn't an alligator yesterday, there could be an alligator there today. Because they're going to move in the cool of the night or in the early mornings. And, they're not going to get out here in this hot sun and get blazed up. And they're going to be there in some retention pond. They only may be there for a week if there's no food or whatever, and then move on. But you don't know, and you're like, oh, we were out there swimming with the dogs yesterday. Let's let Fluffy go out there and swim. Boom. And it's over. And they're moving, and it's mating season. So
Agreed.
nesting alligators, man, you don't want to get within 20 feet of those things.
Well, I'm going to take a page from Stale Cracker, and we should probably take a quick break.
Oh, okay.
While we wait to get our Hollywood, we hydrate.
Well,
In Florida, it's hot.
You got to have a
sweating.
spatula or something slamming on something. You gotta hit
I don't want to
something.
take all this thunder away.
Yeah, I know.
But-
All right, we're going to take a fast one. We'll be right back.
Yes, sir.
Is that what you want to do?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's do it. Welcome back, everybody. It's the Big and Wild Outdoors. I'm Braden Gunn. That's Captain Vince Noble. Bill George is in Pennsylvania. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is Mr. Lester Mac Daddy McDowell.
Lester Charles McDowell.
Oh, I don't know if he wanted to put the Charles in there.
Is that your surname?
This is Lester's place. This is what is known as Dry Creek. As you can see, we've kind of moved locations a little bit from the general store over by the sheriff's office here. And we'll show you some more of the video here as we go along of the what used to be the town of Dry Creek. That was built by this man and volunteers for one purpose and one purpose only, and that was what?
To bring family programming back.
That's right. And you know what? It's always
one heck of a program too.
Now, Lester will tell you that he grew up at a time where in Ojai, California, where he was hanging out with Michael Landon and went to the set of Little House a couple times.
Yeah.
And you always wanted to build this place. I mean, when we're on the radio together, we were on the radio together for what, 30 years?
For a long time.
30 years?
That long?
It actually all started.
When did you start at QYK?
Oh, 85 maybe?
That's when I started, in 85.
Good Lord.
And our last time on radio together was in what, 2009?
Yeah, something like that.
2009?
Yeah.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We had a 5-year contract. So, and they killed us what?
At the end of 4.
At the end of 4. Yeah. So, yeah. So from 1985 to 2009, we've always been on the radio together, either on the morning show or in any other capacity. So, long time together. But during that time, Lester's dream was to always be able to find a place like this out in the middle of nowhere and build a town and build not a ghost town, but a real town.
Yeah. Well, it started out after we got laid off from radio. I was real depressed and stuff like that. So I came out and started building, and it was kind of funny because it was like Field of Dreams or whatever that was, where they said
Build it and they will come.
Build it and they will come. And my wife would come out and she'd see me. I'd work all day out there, and she goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I don't know. I think I'm building sets. I'm going to learn how to put some of my poetry, cowboy poetry, up on YouTube." And so I came out, and then those little YouTube things, and I learned about Facebook, and I put up little 5-minute things of a poem, and we acted out something. And it turned into a series called Dry Creek, America's First Frontier.
I didn't realize it came from cowboy poetry.
Well,
That is so cool.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the first building that you actually built here was the church.
Yeah, the church went up. A guy came and talked to me. His daughter wanted to get married in an old-time church, and he says, "I'll pay for the church, and we'll come out and work on the weekends, and we'll put a church up." And so I said, "There it goes." That's
cool.
got my first thing, and so.
And it's one of the only buildings that literally has not been touched by 2 hurricanes.
No, and the bell tower, nothing's been.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it's meant to be here.
Yeah.
And but then when the dream of Dry Creek started, it kind of morphed into, it was just like local people that actually used to listen to us on the radio, volunteered. I came down and volunteered. You put me to work playing the sheriff, and my kids were here, and other kids were here being extras in the show.
We'd have 100, 150 people here at certain times, and it was really neat because they would say that my Facebook post, and we were on the #1 radio station, CMA, and all that.
Yeah.
I had like maybe 50 people, 75, but Facebook was new and stuff, and it went to 5,000 overnight.
That's insane.
And people from all across the country saying, "I've always wanted to do that. I love the Western. We got to bring it. I love Little House," that type of thing. And so my poems turned into the TV show, and that's kind of what happened.
And I had the privilege to be on one of the shows too, and that was such a cool experience. And
But that was an on-location thing. You were in Pinellas Park.
No, I was here. We did 2 spots.
Yeah.
One in Pinellas Park at the train station.
Yeah.
And then back here on the ranch.
Right.
Yeah.
And I never got to go do location ones. We always did my stuff here. But it's so funny because the characters that you had on the show were really kind of authentic. And I think it made it a little more likable because they weren't like professional actors out
Right,
here
right.
doing their things, and it was just normal people, from the lady doing the wash next to the
Right.
to the church, to the drunk walking down the side of the saloon,
To us two clowns on it.
yeah, I mean, you had real Native Americans on the show with Four Mountains, and your son was in a million episodes as a wrangler and a cowboy, and
Well, you know, John Wayne always said, he said that it's easier to take a cowboy or somebody that's been around horses and show them how to act than it is to have an actor learn how to because, you know, I can watch somebody lead a horse. And just by watching him lead, I know he knows nothing about a horse.
You've done 35 things wrong in the 2 minutes you've had that
and
horse.
the way he holds the horse, the way he acts around him. And that's why so many stars, Ben, what was the guy's name that was in all the John Wayne, Ben, can't think of his name, won an Academy Award. Anyway, he was a cowboy. A lot of the old stars were cowboys first, and then they brought them over from wrangling and stuff, and made them actors.
Well,
Richard Farnsworth.
that's Richard Farnsworth.
Yeah.
Well, we used to, Steve Austin, when we started the outdoor show on 1010, the old Outdoors with Austin and Gun show, people would be like, "You're a disc jockey? You want to come out and kill hogs? You want to come deer?" And I go, "We were hunters before we were DJs."
Exactly.
And now we're DJs who talk about hunting, but we're hunters before we were DJs, not DJs trying to be hunters.
Yeah.
Right.
And, you know, not like today's world where, you know, guys who've never been in front of a camera or a microphone all of a sudden think they can just, you know, throw it up on TikTok and, you know, just be a major hit.
Exactly.
And you have to kind of know what you're doing. And I think a lot of your radio background and all that other stuff, but you also had your own, you know, you had your own television show here locally.
With QYK,
with
yeah.
QYK, and go to all the country bars with your horse, Charlie,
Right.
and literally bring the horse into the bar on the
I
dance
completely
floor.
forgot about that.
Yeah, we
Oh
ran
my
that
God.
for a lot of years. It was at Joyland, WQYK's Les McDowell at Joyland, and we would have Billy Ray Cyrus, who just had achy breaky heart, that he came in because they couldn't get out of the contract, and he came in and was on the show, and we would video ambush people from Johnny Cash to whatever, because I was opening up all the shows at Florida State Fair, so I would get a hold of people and say, "Would you mind if would you be on my show?" And they'd say, "Sure." And
40 years. 40 years. I haven't seen that man closed.
Well, there's something troubling old Bunky. He come walking past my store front earlier, and his hands are up in the air, and he's talking to the sky, and he's saying, "Help me, please, help me." Something's really troubling him.
Hey, I'll tell you what, let's just leave the plow with him. And that way, if he comes back or whatever's going on, we'll get it sharpened.
Well, you know, boss, we got to hurry and get that plow unloaded, 'cause it's almost Christmas time. We got to get this Christmas tree up.
And so I got a lot of Joe Diffie and all those people, Brooks and Dunn, and so
The Johnny Cash one, if you can go, I think it's still up on YouTube. If you go look it up, it's probably one of the funniest ones because he's so deadpan, and you really think that he might be a little bit miffed that Lester's actually there, because he's like, because he plays the new guy reporter kind of guy, like, Mr. Cash, do you mind if we do an interview or something? He's like sitting there with a guitar, and he's like, what do you mean? What do you want to do? And he goes, I just wanted to talk to you. And I used to love that show. It came on Channel 44.
WTOG.
Yeah, back in the day.
Yeah,
and
well, let me tell you a story real quick about Johnny Cash. I was his paper boy in Casita Springs, California, when he lived there up on the hill. And I was Star Free Press. That was my first job as a paper boy. And so we talked about that. And then when I did talk radio out in California, I'd have Reverend Gresson, which was his preacher at Avenue Community Church. And we would go to church over at Bible Fellowship. When we'd come back, Johnny would be out in front of the church meeting people with his guitar slung behind his back. A lot of people thought that Johnny's wife, June, which is a sweetheart, led him to the Lord and stuff. but it was really Reverend Gressett. That was his work.
Wow.
And Reverend Gressett would come on my show, and he would have pictures of him and Johnny and say, I had to go to Mexico and retrieve Johnny and do this and that, and it was his work of art. He's passed away now, but anyway, Johnny and I got to talk. Listen, like I know him, but we did know a lot of the same people, and he, of course, went along with me being paper boy and stuff. And I interviewed June, and yeah, Johnny told me about you throwing the papers and
getting them in the bushes.
Oh, you're that kid, huh?
Yeah, but we spent more time. And another thing Johnny showed me when the cameras weren't running, he was wearing a thing with conchos on it. And he says, Les, he says, I love to go out. He goes, I got a little cabin. He was living in Tennessee. And I got a little cabin, I go out and do leather work. And he says, I just made this. And he was like, at the time, an older grandfather showing you how he did it and everything. And a lot of the, people like him, they have to have a rider, it's called. And they get what kind of food they want. And June and him had fried chicken. I thought that was...
Darn right. Got to have that chicken in there.
I've dealt with a couple of bands when we were doing some stuff and booking bands, and some of the riders, I'm looking, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. You want what? No, I'm not buying that for you. I don't care how good you know. No, I'm not buying you Evian water, purple and green M&Ms, and some ridiculous...
One of the toughest ones at the fair was the Eagles.
Really?
Oh, I'm sure.
And their lead guitar player, whatever his name, he's straight
Joe
down.
Walsh.
Joe Walsh.
Yeah.
Oh, he was terrible. But anyway, he's
Well, but speaking of big celebrities, this land that you're on right now, this Dry Creek television movie set kind of thing, you've had quite a few celebrities on this ground. I mean, people that we would know. I mean, it's not it may not be Charlton Heston, but I mean Kevin Sorbo from back in the day.
Oh wow! Did he play Beastmaster?
He played Hercules.
Hercules, that's what it was.
Yeah, Hercules.
Hercules.
And but there's others names too. I mean, God, what was the one guy? I can't remember his name. I never got to work with him because when I was doing this, it was all local people.
Martin Cole from the Karate Kid movies.
Okay.
That played the bad sensei. He was out here. Jesse Cove is doing really good.
Not that long ago, right?
Yeah. No, that was the last thing filmed here. And then the guy that played Weekend at Bernie's, Terry Kaiser.
Oh yeah.
Was out here, and he's 80-something, and I swear he is in better shape than I am, any of us, and he just walks around, and he doesn't even look like he's 80-something.
Good for him.
Well, I mean, if you've never been to a movie set or anything like that, when this first started out, the actors and actresses, we were literally changing in the church because it was the only place that had air conditioning and all that stuff, and it gets hot out here. Yeah. But up until about 7 years ago, I mean, you had dressing room trailer. I mean, it looked like a real movie set. You had dressing room trailers, wardrobe trailers, costume trailers,
the lunch area.
All that stuff was.
Well, I tell you what happened, which was we were real fortunate. We were on Blue Highways TV finally out of Nashville, and Stan Hitchcock, who was a visionary behind CMT, and also signed Garth was his first thing, and Clint Black, and real big into country music, and he was a country music star back in the day in the 50s. He had this network called Blue Highways TV, and I had lost my network, and I was coming back, and I just happened to call him. And called Blue Highways TV, and they put me right through to him, and I said, I'm going to be coming through Nashville. Can I meet you? You betcha. And he goes, I've heard of the show. And so went in and talked to him, and he said, explain the show to me. And I explained, I said, it's for family. We have shows too about the prayer warrior and stuff like that, but we don't get real religious. It's like Little House in a way, that type of thing. And I said, it's really he goes, stop. And I thought, oh boy. And he says, we never make excuses for the Lord, and we never make excuses for America.
Wow.
And he says, I will run you. And he ran us for a number of years. Stan last year passed away, and he was my mentor in the business because he had done so much. And I would call him from time to time.
Well, we had Toby Benoit on the show last week, and he has a movie out, the Python Hunter, and it's going pretty good. It was filmed down the Everglades. It's kind of like a documentary, historic kind of thing. But Dry Creek, you guys also touched on a lot of historic stuff about Florida. Being Florida's first cattle state, and the yellow fever epidemic that happened here in the state of Florida, where
Yeah, the
I think
doll.
I was on that episode too, I think, or at least I was down here helping, where it was all about the doctor getting down here.
Right.
That actually is a real figure,
And the yellow fever really did happen.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like what we went through a couple of years ago in America, with our disease that went through here. But
Right.
it was something, man. Well, when I first started doing Dry Creek, I thought I was doing a Western. And I would hide the Spanish moss. And I would say, I wanted to, I don't know what made me, because came from California, I guess.
So you're thinking more out west.
I was
instead of
thinking
Florida.
more, and then I read a book called The Land Remembered, and I was mesmerized. I couldn't put it down. Patrick J. Smith wrote it, and it was in schools for years and years. It's a big, thick book, and I learned about Florida history. And then when people would interview me or whatever, I'd say, I thought I was doing a Western, but now I'm doing an Eastern. and this is the
Southeastern, yeah.
This is the first time this has been told. Now, what makes me feel so good is Mark Pentecost, who's a multi-billionaire and a great guy. He was a school teacher, and then he came up with a pill that was good for your body and this and that, called It Works. And now he's got private jets, this, that, and he's got a several thousand-acre ranch out in Mayaca, which is 35 minutes away from here. And he come out and was going to do Florida Wild here, and he says it's just not big enough. And
So he went and built another one?
built a whole,
insane.
wait till you see this town. It's as good as any Western set you'd see at Universal or anyone I've ever seen. Sound stages. He brought in different stars. Lee Majors was one, and Myra Savino or whatever. She won an Academy Award. Her dad was a big actor. The guy, one of the big stars from Walking Dead, Les McDowell.
Yay!
I had one day on it. But in other words, it's going to be a series. It's going to be actually out in theaters. I'm talking about millions of dollars was put into this, and it's going to be out in theaters in just the next couple of months. And they want to make it into a series,
That's cool.
kind of like Lonesome Dove or something. But
That'd
it
be
tells
awesome.
the Florida story.
Well, I was going to say, this town is kind of like the original what Florida towns would have looked like. It's rough-hewn wood, it's sawed logs, it's whatever you could get in this state.
But you could get out in the woods is what you
And what you could get out in the woods. And then this is like the original. And then what this gentleman has built down in Mayaca is maybe a decade or so later,
Right,
or so,
right.
so that it's more prosperous. But I mean, this town always reminded me of the town from Once Upon a Time in the West. If you've ever seen that movie, and they go into that saloon.
Okay, deputy, I want to know what you're going to do about my stagecoach that was held up.
Man, if you don't stop this balloon,
Hey,
I don't think.
what's going on around here?
and it's a low ceiling. There's cracks in the walls. I mean, it's like they just picked up whatever piece of wood they could to build that thing. And Dry Creek used to look that way, but then it also kind of evolved when you had the saloon and the sheriff's. Every building got a little bit better once you had like maybe a sawmill in town, or where you could get wood in by train or by wagon load or whatever. And the evolution from what Dry Creek started as to what it sadly ended up being, but after the hurricanes, it's run its course.
Right.
And
we've had every major university here doing their, what do they call it, the end of the year movies, the students, high school students. We've had Boy Scouts. We've had
photography clubs,
the Blue Hat Ladies or whatever they're called. we've had people come by, and it has really been a blessing.
I mean, Dry Creek has touched a lot of people's lives.
But I want to make an announcement that people don't know about. Dry Creek is going to live on because I've started writing the Dry Creek books, and there's going to be the episodes of Dry Creek in them. But it's going to be like the Little House on the Prairie books. It's going to look like them. It's going to be the same size. It's going to feel
old
like
school kind of artwork.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
That's awesome. So when you're dead, somebody will make a TV series out of it.
Exactly. But
wait, who's going to get the residuals for that?
But
Here, I got some paper for you to sign real quick.
to take 15 seconds, I'll tell you, it's about modern day, and the guy's out digging with a big bulldozer, those things that come out, look like a dinosaur.
Yeah.
And he pulls up
excavator.
He pulls up a trunk, plink, out of the swamp, and he throws it in the back of his truck, and he goes home. Anyway, his little girl, they open it up, and Abby, who lived in Dry Creek, had wrote her diaries.
That is
and
so
the little
cool.
girl at night reads her diary, and then Abby will say in the book, "I've got to go now because Mom's blowing out the lantern light." And then the other little girl, modern day, "Turn out the light."
Yeah.
That is awesome.
And it tells the story, and I'm really enthused about it. I've got the first one written. And I'm really, so when we leave here, which we'll be leaving maybe 3 to 6 months, moving to Georgia, that's all I'm going to do is write those books.
Well, but you're also going to, you're still acting. Can you talk about the TV series that you're involved in now or not?
Yeah. It's called Grayson and the Ivy Genie, and the book is a small kid's book, but it's #1 on Amazon. And I play the grandfather. So it's about a kid that lives in the city, and he comes out to his grandfather's farm and grandmother's farm and spends 2 weeks, and he builds a tree house with his buddies and friends, and they run into an Ivy Genie out, and he gets 3 wishes. And the lady that's going to play my wife is Sandra Loughran, and she was in the Johnny Cash movie, I Walk the Line. She played Johnny's mother. She was
with Joaquin Phoenix, that one?
Yeah.
That was a good one.
That was a good one.
With Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She had scenes with him, matter of fact. And she says, the funny thing about it, I never met him. I read this, I haven't met her yet, but I read an interview of her. And so you never met that. I never met the actor, but I had to sit down and do it. And he was real good to work with. But yeah, so.
I knew his brother.
Is that right?
River Phoenix, yeah. He was a nice kid.
Yeah.
It's a shame he had to die on the sidewalk. But anyway.
Yeah.
But this one, and then of course, people made this. If you follow you on Facebook, we all know that you're going to be moving up to Georgia, not just because you want to get out of this area.
Well, we hadn't made the announcement yet, but it's a good enough.
Thanks, Braden.
No, it's a good enough place to do it.
But and it's for the opportunities because Georgia, around Atlanta, and in Alabama, the filming industry is just blown up.
Yeah,
great opportunities for
Mark Fincannon, he casts most of Atlanta stuff, and he cast me in Florida Wild, which I only had 1 day's work on there. But he liked my reel and says, "Les, you get up here," and he goes, "I'm going to keep you busy." I guess for old people now, there's lots of.
Well, I think Walking Dead started the whole Georgia thing because that's where they film all.
Well, the
Walking
biggest
Dead.
studios are up there.
Well, you also had the Carolinas, with the Hunger Games and all that stuff. So people are starting to appreciate the Southeast a lot more. But what's funny is I think the first standalone commercial that I ever saw Lester in, besides the ones that we were in for radio, doing the crazy zany, ones for television locally.
The old school ones.
Was you had the whole market of the state of Florida when you did the minor 49er for the Florida State Lottery.
Yeah, that was fun.
Which was funny as crap. And that one I think you can still find on YouTube as well.
And I did a country music video. They wanted me to recreate that character for a country guy, and we did it. And they put the beard and everything on. That was a lot of fun.
Did you ever think in your wildest dreams that you would act and do in movies and have your own TV show?
Well, I'm going to tell you something right now, and I love radio, and I wouldn't give radio up. I loved it, but when I was probably 16 years old, out in California, I was one of those guys, a waiter to make my busboy, and John Carradine was sitting in there, and it was just him and I. And he was kind of drunk and he was eating, and I'm saying, man, I got to go home. My mom's out there going to pick me up and stuff. And I said, how do you get to be an actor? He goes, get into radio. And he goes, learn how to project.
Okay.
And I says, you look like Paladin, Richard Boone. He goes, do you know who I am? And I said, no. And he goes, go ask your boss. And I went and asked him, and he goes, that's John Carradine of the whole Carradine family. He's one of the greatest actor that ever lived, blah, blah, blah. So I got into radio. And I would go down to LA and do industrial films and act in some and stuff, but then I had to pay the bills. I had kids, and I couldn't. And no offense to QYK and the great memories I've gotten in radio, but I was itching to act, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't.
You had opportunities, but it was only like the
busy.
Joyland and all that other stuff.
But we were busy, We were doing nightclubs, and doing the stagecoach and just trying to make a living. And so finally,
the sad part is that a lot of our bosses that we had back in the day, when Lester would talk about maybe one day being an actor and being all this, they're like, man, you're not a radio guy. You do traffic and stuff on the radio. Why would you want to be an actor? It's almost like
kicking you down,
the Bible always says, it's like one of those things where you have a dream and everybody around you just trying to keep beating you down.
It's the poison.
Let me say this, and maybe I shouldn't, but out in California.
Oh, I thought you were going to apologize to me for not getting an auditioning for Pirates of the Caribbean, you son of a.
They used to say, oh, you were big in California, the other guys, at the radio station and stuff, and I didn't talk about it or nothing, but I was out there. I was doing industrial films. I was a member of the Comedy Store through Freddie Prinze, David Letterman, all those guys, hanging out at the Comedy Store, a member finally, and opening up for people and doubling John Davidson in the shell game for CBS.
Oh, wow.
And so doing things, but to make money for my family, I learned how to fly and to be a traffic reporter so I wouldn't have to worry about ratings, and came here. And the first job they had me was out at Big 3 Auto Parts, standing out with a rope. You see the guys with the signs today? I was standing out, and I'd have to rope all
doing
day.
trick rope tricks.
To bring people into his thing.
Wow.
And
Big 3 Truck Salvage used to be right there on Highway 60.
Yeah. Anyway, I would sit out there, and I'm not kidding you, I had tears in my eyes saying, what am I doing in Florida? I backed up, but I was doing it for my family,
You do what you got to do today so you can do what you want to do tomorrow.
Well, on that sad note, we're going to take a quick break so we can all go dry our eyes and go pee. But we're out here at Dry Creek in Parrish, Florida, hanging out with Lester McDowell, star of Dry Creek and many other great productions, as well as a CMA Award winner from country music, and just a great guy to be around. I'm Braden Gunn, that's Captain Vince Noble, and this is Les McDowell, and we'll be right back.
Hey guys, it's Lauren Hatton. I'm your new media coordinator, and I'm with the Big and Wild Outdoors. I'm just coming on here to say hi, introduce myself, and tell you that we are looking for partnerships. We want you to work with us. We want to have your partnerships. We want to have your sponsorship. We just want to collab. So reach out to us. My information will be listed below. So be sure and reach out to us and let us know how we can join forces. So it's nice to meet you guys. I'm over here in Arkansas, so it's a beautiful day outside enjoying it, and just wanted to say hi. Bye.
Welcome back, everybody. It's the Big and Wild Outdoors. Braden Gunn, Captain Vince Noble, and Lester Charles Mac Daddy McDowell, CMA Award winner.
You are too.
Well, yeah, that's true. Well, we won together. We won together. Actually, We only got 1 trophy, but in reality, we should have
4.
5. I think
Yeah.
5. Bosses like to take credit for a lot of stuff, and so we only ended up with 1 crystal trophy, but we should really be a 5-time CMA award winner because we won 5 times.
Yeah.
Station of the Year and Morning Shows of the Year and ACMs and all those other ones, all those other accolades that don't add to your paycheck for some reason.
How is that even possible?
I don't know. You got good ratings. You got your pay. Shut the hell up. But that's the way it works. But you know what's really funny is when we did win the CMA awards, we were all up in Nashville together, and there they brought us up on stage, and Billy Dean was our presenter when we came out, another Florida kid. So it was nice to see him and talk Old Home Week. And when we were leaving, like the next day, we were all flying out together, and I remember I was going through the scanner. And I put my carry-on bag on the thing, and it went through, and all of a sudden it stops, and I see the lady back there looking at the screen. She's like going, she's kind of looking, and she kind of looks around, and she looks, she calls the supervisor over, and he comes walking over, and he looks, and he goes, did you win a CMA last night? And I was like, yes, sir, I did. He goes, come around here. I want to show you something. And on the screen, because it's made of lead crystal, it literally looked like an artillery shell. It looked like a big giant bullet in there. And the girl apparently she was new on the shift, and he goes, yeah, we've had about 5 or 6 of those come through already this morning. That's why I know what it is. He goes, but I still need you to open up so we can look at it.
That's good.
And all of a sudden Lester and Skip and everybody else in the line goes, I got one in mine too. And they're like, oh, we need to look at them and all that stuff. But since I was the first monkey to go through there, and he says, why didn't you do it? Put it in your bag. I go, man, it's a CMA award. I'm carrying that thing with me. I'm taking
it's not
it
going
with me.
anywhere.
So we made it through the airport and had a great time up there doing that kind of thing, which we should have done even more of. But CMA or not, your awards, I'm sure, and your accolades are going to continue, especially being that close up to Hotlanta and being able to work as much as you've been working, because in reality, I know there was kind of a dry spell there after radio where you were concentrating on this and trying to figure out some things in life. I mean, I did too. Everybody did.
Right.
But it was one of those things where once it started, it was like
Giant snowball.
you just kept going. And even now, I mean, it seems like on Facebook every week, can't talk about it. Got a production coming up. Got a movie coming out. And I play this, or that's as much as I can tell you.
Like, my friend, you make me feel old as much as you do. I'm like, how in God's name is Les doing all this stuff all the time?
I mean,
I've been blessed.
I mean, but in reality, after Dry Creek and all this, I mean, how many? There's a movie now on Netflix that I watched last month that you're in. You play not a grandfather, a dad with a mother with Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
What's the name of that one?
Dimming Lights. Yeah.
Dimming Lights. I watched that one, and I'll be the first to admit, man, you watch that movie, and it's like at first you're like, oh, I know that guy. Oh my God, that's Lester. But then as you're watching to get into the characters, you know, you turn into that guy that's like, I'm not crying, you're crying.
I got dust in my eye.
Yeah. I'm gonna go walk over to the sink real quick and wash my face. And my kids are like going, what's going on there? What's wrong? Nothing. Just,
That was a tough one. That was a Christmas movie, and we did it in July, and it was real hot, of course.
But it was filmed here.
Yeah,
right?
it was not here. We did it up in North Tampa and a few other locations. But it really touched home because my mother had that disease and died from that disease. And so it was real easy to act in because, man, all those memories came up. And come to find out.
Well, and also for me too, knowing, because I was with you on the air when all that was going through.
Yeah.
And seeing you go this and then that and then this and that. It's kind of like when you'd see a scene, I would be sitting there thinking what you're thinking. I'd be going, poor Lester, man, having to go through this and fight through this scene, man, this must suck out loud, you know?
Why in the world do they film Christmas movies in the summer?
I don't know.
I never could.
That is the dumbest thing ever.
But not to take away from it, because I know, you know, Mama went through that, you know, it was many years of dealing with that. You driving all the way back up to Illinois to take care of her and then come back and do radio. And do all your other crap.
And it worked out kind of good, because when we got let go from radio, when they wanted more music and Les McDowell.
Oh yeah,
Come on.
that's why they fired us all.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, they didn't fire us. We were
Let go.
Let go.
no, we weren't let go. We were put on what do they call that? Where you're not really fired, but
Administrative leave.
well, where they can call you back.
Oh, laid you off.
Yeah, we were laid off.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was let out like this here, but
Get your box and you're out the door.
pretty much, yeah.
It was so funny because when you talk to them and you go to the unemployment office, they're like, well, sir, when they're here, it says you're laid off, so you can actually go back to work. And I go, who says I was laid off? They made me pack my crap up and security escort you out the building. I almost got in a fight with the program director because he said, I can't let you take anything. I said, there's two things I'm leaving here with. One is my 8-point deer head I had in the studio and my headphones that I'd gotten from Tom Rivers. I said, I'm walking out with those. I don't give a crap. You know, you ain't stopping me from getting those. And he goes, all right, I'll let you do that. I go, oh, you're not letting me.
You're misunderstanding my words, son.
Well, needless to say, I didn't go back and work for that guy ever again. But
It was a blessing to me to let go. It made me have to do what I really always wanted to do.
That's amazing. I mean, it's funny how certain doors close and other ones open up.
Well, that
And then
door,
the river flows, and it's amazing. You did
as
such a
fast
great
as
job.
it happened, you have to say that in reality, always in the background, that door was always cracked open. Because you literally jumped. I mean, like I said, you had a few years where you were sitting around trying to wonder, but when it happened, it just steamrolled, and it's still happening to this day, which is awesome. Because you know what? All the doubters and all those other people that were out there are now having to sit back going, I'll be dang, that damn Les McDowell, he did it. That son of a gun,
Well,
man,
you know,
he
I'm
really
never
did it.
going to be a big television personality or anything like that. But
You don't know that.
But I'm doing what I love, you know. And
You may get the role of a lifetime.
you know, Richard Farnsworth, a perfect example. He's my hero as an actor. And The Gray Wolf and everything, he was in his late 60s, you know. And before he won an Academy Award, Ben Johnson, he was older. There's so many of those actors.
Clint Eastwood, bro.
Yeah.
Clint Eastwood in Unforgiven was how old when he got that? I mean,
Yeah, but he done Rawhide and stuff.
but he didn't win any Academy Award. He wasn't like
right.
He wasn't a household name.
It wasn't like huge accolades.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, okay, The Enforcer and all those things in the '70s, but it was a cop movie.
Yeah. I got to tell you a story about Clint Eastwood.
Oh, here we go.
I had at the Palomino Club, I was doing stand-up comedy, and I had the head of daytime programming, Wally Weltman from ABC. This was before I came to Florida. I had Dick Wilson, Mr. Whipple, Don't Squeeze the Charmin, coming, and a few other people for a set that I was going to do, and they were meeting me in North Hollywood to watch me. Okay, so I could get something with ABC. And I had written a show called Country Hijinks, where the city slickers against the country bumpkins. And they have to do these things. City guy, you know, celebrity has to milk a cow.
Yeah.
Anyway, we get there and they're filming Anyway but Loose with Clint Eastwood. And we pull up with my wife and we get there a little bit early and there Clint Eastwood is out in the parking lot. The big lights are on all over and there's a horse trailer, like a 4-horse trailer enclosed. And it's going like this here. And that orangutan was in there, Clyde. And, you know, just
By himself moving the whole trailer?
just moving the whole trailer. And Eastwood's standing out by himself with that T-shirt on that he wore in that movie and stuff. And I come walking up, and Sheb Woolley, that played Pete Nolan on Rawhide, was dear friends with him, and Clint would never forget him. He was in 3 Mules for Sister Sarah and this and that, and Sheb was my mentor out in California, my dear friend. He did Purple People Eater.
Oh, wow.
And all
Okay.
that, and in Rawhide, and he was in The Hoosiers.
All good movies.
With Gene Hackman and stuff like that. Anyway, I go up and I said, hey, I'm friends with Sheb Woolley, and I think, you know, using that, and we sit there.
It was his lead in.
And my wife, who I was dating at the time, she's a really pretty lady. And she says, oh, no, that's not true, but it is true. He sat there all the time I was talking, up and down, looking at her. And I was getting mad. I really was, being a young guy. I was getting mad, and he was just checking her out. And to this day, and I put in the book, that I wanted to make his day. That's a true story. I never did get to get on stage because they were filming a fight scene in there, and it went on, and Dick Wilson had to leave, and the guy from ABC had to leave, and it was a mess. But we got to meet him.
You know what's really funny is you were talking about your anger, and I was like, people ask me about you when we talk about you. I said, you know, I've only seen Lester get mad one time in my life with a human being. I've seen him get upset in the studio. You know, maybe something was said that made him mad, but he did his job. He was professional. He didn't he'd complain about it later to the right people. But one time, our leader, I think it was we were Tom Rivers back in the day, and there were a bunch of peacocks loose in North Tampa, and they were caught. It made it on the news that they were they get out there and they're making all the noise, and so you had half the neighborhood loved them and the other half hated them. So Tom Rivers, in his infinite wisdom, gave us a portable wireless microphone system and said, I want you and Lester to go out there and catch some peacocks. Because Lester,
literally catch the peacocks.
That was when he first bought this place, and Lester was going, dude, I'd love to have some peacocks out on my property. And he's like, so he sent us out there to go catch peacocks. Yeah. And here we are in the
we had a box, like a kid, with a stick and a string.
Sketchy,
But we got out there. We're in the radio station van, WQYK all over it and everything else. And we pull off and we're doing a break. And we're actually on the radio. That was back then live, but there was no delay. Right. It was instantaneous. And this guy comes screaming up in a car. And I think he had his girlfriend or wife or mom or somebody with him. And he'd been listening to our breaks. And he pulled up and he said, hey, you sons of, you know what? You're not taking our peacocks. Oh, and he started getting crazy. And so Lester's trying to play it off as a comedy bit, on the radio. And,
this is real.
And I'm standing there and we're live on the radio. And this guy's like starting to scream at him all this stuff. And now all of a sudden I see Lester start covering up the microphone. Because now I can see in his face it completely changed. Because now he's going, now you're really starting to piss me off, sir. I need you to just get in your car and drive away. This is a radio bit. We're not out here to catch peacocks. And he's like going, you're damn right you're not. I mean, he just kept escalating it to the point where I said, we're done here. We got to go. We got to leave because I grabbed the microphone and Tommy's in my head going, what's going on out there? And I'm going, Lester's about ready to kick the living dog crap out of this guy who's getting up in his face. And so we end up piling back in the vehicle and we didn't leave. We actually just went around the corner to somewhere else. And the whole time we're driving, it was like when you get in a fight in a high school. Lester's like, man, I should have laid that guy out. I should have kicked his ass. I should have done this. I should have done that. And I'm going, dude, no, you did the right thing. We got the radio station band out here. We're not supposed to be fighting our listeners, man, out here. So we pulled around the corner. We did some other fake little break. And in the background, if you remember, in the background, this other place we got to was a little more jungly. And sure, you could start hearing them in the background. So we're like, oh, wait, they're over here on the west side. We got to go. We got to leave. And Lester's like, yeah, get in the van. Let's go. So we pretended to chase them around for about another hour and a half and stuff. And then we drove back to the radio station.
That's great.
But the whole time driving back to the radio station, it was funny because Lester was just over there just brooding. That guy. Can you believe that guy? Can you believe that guy? Can you believe that guy? Brady, you should have turned me loose on that guy. You should have. I was like, no.
I'm glad he did, and I would have got my, you know what.
But dude, we had so much fun on the radio together. I mean, when people would always say, what's your job? And I would tell them, and I would answer, and they'd say, what's your job? I go, I get up and I go into a soundproof room and I get to laugh for 4 hours. Mm-hmm. Because off the air stuff, we used to talk about this all the time, that we used to just want to do an off the mic show.
We've talked about that.
Yeah,
but
that came from the old QYK days, because the discussions that we would have in the room off the FCC regulated, airwaves.
3 minutes and 35 seconds of time, you get a whole conversation.
I remember one time we had a lady on that taught us manners. It was Kim
Goddard.
Yeah, taught us manners, and I'm sitting over there, of course, I'm not in the conversation too much, being an old cowboy, and I go to take a drink of my Coke that I had there, and it was a spit cup, and I drunk the spit cup. I mean, I took a big swallow.
Lester used to keep 2 drinks. He'd have one as a spit cup and one as his drink.
And I got the wrong one.
He got distracted and grabbed the spit cup. I used to sit over to his right. It was like almost like an L shape. So I was over on his right. And I'll never forget when he went like this to kick back and he just pulled the can away. And it was coming out. I think I was the only other person in the room that saw it besides Kim or whatever. But what did she say to you? I don't even remember.
They went off on me. It was terrible. I remember one time you said, and I think we can say it here, you were doing the sports, you said #1 draft prick.
Oh, I did. I did say #1 draft prick. But the other one, you talk about getting a call from the radio station. Not only did we get call from the agency that put the commercial on and the salesperson who was going through the roof, was because Lester could not get the words out in his traffic report. This report brought to you by McDonald's. Stop into McDonald's today for the big and nasty.
It's big and tasty.
It's big and tasty. And so now he's got nasty because
we had McDonald's wanting to.
Of course, once he said it live on the radio and we berated him for it for the next 5 minutes live on the radio, now it's ingrained in his brain. So every time that commercial would come up, he would either have to go, "Stop in now for your McDonald's big and tasty," and we'd all in the room go, "Tasty, it's tasty." And then
that's like you when you can't pronounce names. This clown, we go out on set, we're talking to a guy. This guy's name is Steve. Guy's name is Steve. Is Chris, Jake, John, Chickleheimer, Smith. I'm like, bro, it's Steve. Just Steve.
Yeah, but I can't, especially if you put their last name. Last week we had Eric on, and Eric has a last name like.
It's Nick.
Is it Nick?
Right?
No, I kept calling him Nick. His name is Eric. It was like Eric Capitalanani or whatever. What's his last name? Carpinelli.
That's it, Carpinelli.
Carpinelli.
Yeah.
Tasty.
Yep, there you go. Tasty. Yeah.
But I was like, there's no one with the last name Carpinelli that's supposed to be called Eric.
Yeah.
So it'd be Nicholas or Nikolai Carpin. You know what I mean? So I would always.
Nikolai's Russian, you clown.
Whatever.
I don't know any Italian that's named Nikolai.
Well, there's Greeks. There's Greek Nikolais and
what is
whatever.
wrong with you?
But anyway, for 20, 30-something years on the radio, that's what we had to deal with every single day. And it went through the many years of Tom Rivers, and then all our fill-ins with Steve Austin and Hank Dale, and then Tom Rivers, and then Skip Mahaffey. And then we moved over to another dial, 103.5, and stayed there with Skip for a number of years. He's still on the radio, by the way. Mm-hmm. And but I literally would tell people, I get up at 4, I walk in a studio at 6, and I laugh for the next 4.5 hours.
But let's face it, that time of radio in modern age time was the golden age of radio in modern time. It was. Because it's not like that anymore.
Well,
it's terrible.
I think it was the last breaths of the golden era of radio, because that really started in the 50s.
Well, of course.
And through the 60s and 70s with personality driven.
What Tom Rivers brought was that reality radio. Before long,
we started
it. Where it wasn't, we didn't go and let's prepare this. It's what happened last night. What
are you doing this weekend? Yeah. What did you do? And it was anything from, I had a flat tire. Why are you late?
Yeah.
Because I had a flat tire. Where? On the Skyway. Well, how'd you get back? How'd you do your first traffic report? Well, walked up to the
top of the bridge
to a payphone. One of the greatest busts ever on the planet. Lester, for a while, was actually up in the airplane. Okay? Up in the airplane doing traffic reports. I'm in the studio with Tom Rivers and Rita Ciccarello back in the day. And the last break before we get off the air was at 9:55 or 9:50. It was our last traffic break. And so Tom Rivers goes, all right, let's check in now with Les McDowell for our latest in traffic. We got traffic backed up on I-4 and 275 looks clear and everything.
I was sitting at home.
In the background, this rooster goes off. And so he let him finish. Well, he had a Marty, and you have to turn the Marty off and the broadcasting Marty. And before he goes, Les, he goes, yeah, because he's on headphones and a mic. And Rivers goes, I'm sorry, I need to ask you something. He goes, what's that, Tommy? He goes, did I just hear a chicken in the background? And he's like, maybe? And he goes, so wait a minute, do you have a chicken up there in the airplane with you? Well, no. So you're at home right now? Well, Yeah, I'm back at home. We had some storm clouds moving, Tommy. It was like we had thunder hands rolling in, so we landed early. and then there were other times where we would call on him and he wouldn't be there. And we're like, let's check in now with Les McDowell, our, what did we call it? The air traffic report or something? I can't remember.
Something other than the sky, I forgot.
Yeah, and it wasn't like eye
The
in
owl
the
in the
sky.
sky. The owl in the sky.
Okay.
McDowell's owl in the sky.
And then all of a sudden he wasn't there. And so we're like, okay, Lester's not there. Let's hope he didn't crash.
Right.
So all of a sudden we come back and we're like, on the next traffic report, we'd be like, all right, now let's check in with Les McDowell. We're trying to, this is Les McDowell up in the air traffic. And he'd go through a spiel and we'd go, Rivers would go like, what, where were you? Where were you on the last break? What happened? Why weren't you on there? He goes, well, I had to make a landing. What do you mean you had to make a landing? Emergency landing, or is there something wrong? Well, kind of, sort of. What do you mean you had to make a landing? Well, I had to go like 10-100. Well, 10-100 for you out there in the CB world knows that that means you have to stop and
Go to the bathroom.
go to the bathroom. 10-100 is the first one. 10-200 is the other one. Yeah. And he's like, 10-100, would you go back to the airport? No, I landed in some cow field out here out north of Plant City. You just put it on the ground, get out of the plane with the engine still running, go over, take a leak, jump back in the plane, and take back off again.
Can you imagine sitting up at your house going, what
is that guy
going on out
One
there?
time I was really depressed, and we're brothers, we're all brothers, and if somebody's down or something, and Rivers or you or somebody says, what's the matter, Les? And I said, well, Connie and I had a little tit last night, meaning tiff. We had a little tiff last night.
That was with Rivers.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, there it went.
But he didn't even know that he said it. That's what kills us. Is he goes, well, Connie and I, we had a little tit last night. And we're like going,
Trying not to.
you're thinking, three-way, brought somebody else new in. What is that?
Braden, one time we were over in Orlando at Disney, and he went into.
We used to broadcast from Disney quite a bit, at least once or twice, maybe even 4 times a year.
A lot.
He went into this 10-minute routine that had everybody rolling on the ground, had me rolling about my mind and how a gate opens in my mind.
And all the cows tried to come out at one time?
And then this happens, and I mean to tell you, and it got funnier and funnier. Oh my goodness! We had
sorter
great
up there.
We
That's
did. we were. I'm going to say that we probably our radio show, because we used to go to these things called morning show boot camps, and all the top morning shows from around the country. I mean, big names. I mean, like Cowhead and others, and not Howard Stern, but he wouldn't show up for that. But we would sit there and we'd talk about our best bits, or what did we do this past year, and what did we do, all that stuff. And it was funny because we weren't really assigned roles on our morning show, especially with Tom Rivers. He said, I want it to be just like Seinfeld. Mm-hmm. I want it to be where you have Lester busted through the door like, like George or anybody like that, and talk about what was going on. It was a show about nothing. Mm-hmm. And our show was basically about
be yourself.
Nothing but everything that was in our lives.
But it also created your characters.
But it created a bond with our listeners that they knew us personally.
Yeah.
When they would come talk to us, it wasn't like they'd walk up like you would walk up to Charlton Heston. They'd walk up and go, "Hey Lester, what's going on, man? How are the chickens?"
Yeah.
Or or something like that. And it was a totally different mindset. And when we would talk about that with all these top morning shows around the country, they were blown away. They just couldn't understand.
Because they're all scripted and so robotic, and that's how. And then, I'm glad that's how we kind of continued, like Radio Rejects.
Yes,
Big and Wild right now. We're doing it the same way.
Exactly, and we learned that with people like Lester, and for a while there, Rita Ciccarello and Jimmy Dean and
Tom Rivers,
and Tommy and everybody else. And he said, "Look, I don't want anybody in here reading scripts unless it's a commercial." You don't type out anything. You don't write anything. We don't come in and go, okay, what does everybody got? What 3 subjects do you have? What do you have? What did you bring to the table? And what do you have? And sadly, the radio station that we moved to started acting that way. And it really does. It knocked down the talent. It knocked it down completely. When you get pulled into a program director's office and you go, Lester, at 12:16, you talked about a Dominick or chicken out on your property. And Lester would be like, yeah. And he goes, Well, how many of our listeners do you think really connect with that? And how many of your listeners do you think actually even know what a
All the ones
Dominecker
that
is?
followed us over to the station.
And he goes, and then he would ask the question. So why would you even bring it up? And somebody like me defending him or Skip or somebody would go, because it's funny. That's why.
Right.
We brought it up because we know what he's talking about. And you know what? That's the way it should be. If you're new here to this radio station, if you're new to our show, you need to learn each and every one of our characteristics. You're the stranger.
Yeah.
We're not strangers in the studio. You tuning in for the first time makes you the stranger. So you need to learn us, not us learn you. And it really kind of, was the beginning of the end for that kind of stuff. But that literally carried over into his characterization of Dry Creek, where he would say, here's the premise of what you're doing in this scene. You do what you got to do. You do
And
you.
it makes it a real experience.
He did it when he came to you.
Yeah.
He goes, you're not an actor anymore, but here's what you're doing. You're a horse buyer, standing here.
Pull his mouth open, touch his teeth, lift his lips, do that.
Do what Lester would do, do what Vince would do if he was buying a horse.
Right.
Not, I need you to stand here. I need you to hit this mark. I need you to go this. Make sure you do. Oh, stop. You forgot to put your hand in your watch pocket.
Over the years, Les, and I've always been a huge fan. Cowboy poetry was my thing. I always loved listening to it on the radio, and then actually having the opportunity to do some radio with you, do some shows with you, have you here today. It's a huge honor.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I feel the same way about you, my friend.
And
I'm nobody, my friend. I'm just the guy doing the show.
And one of the reasons why we wanted to come down here is because of the fact that you are going to be moving away to Georgia, and this may be one of the last opportunities that I brought my kids because they've been here since they were little, running around this set, riding horses through here. I wanted them to see it before it goes away. I want that memory to be there, because after you move away and this gets bulldozed and developed and everything else, it's just going to be gone. It's going to be gone forever.
Wait, can we do like the chop? Start selling pieces of Dry Creek for $15 on bigandwild.com.
I guarantee you could probably get some pretty good money for some of these
stained glass windows,
these logs and stuff here on the side. But Lester, man, I love you.
Love you, brother. Man.
And I will. I know I
everything,
busted your what's about coming up and visiting in Georgia, but I think we'll probably make the trip.
I want you to.
You'll definitely see us, because we got to come up there once a year.
Oh, good.
So count on it, and
we'll have a room for you.
So what we'll do, let's just coordinate it when we go. We can do the Big and Wild in Georgia with Les.
Yeah. But listen, I don't want to get into acting or anything like that, so don't call me. don't call me about any of that acting crap.
So next week on the Big and Wild, we'll talk about the black bears, the alligator season, and what else were we going to talk about today?
I don't even know. Everything else, but we got distracted because
it's a good distraction.
Believe it or not, with Lester here, we could turn this into an 8-hour episode. Seriously.
Yeah.
And thank God it's only me and you, because if we had Skip and anybody else in the state, it might as well just be a year-long podcast.
Lots of memories.
Yeah.
I would like to see that reunion. I think that'd be kind of cool.
Well, he keeps threatening to come down here and come hang out with us.
3 times we talked to him and he hasn't come down.
Whenever he comes down, he always films a commercial and then he flies out the next day. So it's like he's here and gone. But maybe one of these days we'll all get together up in Nashville or something. And
you bet.
Are you still doing your CMA membership stuff?
Yeah.
Are you doing your voting?
Oh yeah.
You're still doing that?
Oh yeah.
Do you even know who the country yards are in the state?
I have no idea. I go with it's one of those, just kind of flip a coin.
So Brandon Lake and Jelly Roll. That's all you need to know right now.
These days.
I like Jelly Roll.
Yeah. Because believe it or not, you may not know this because all you see is what's on television. But once you win a CMA award, you're a member for life, and they don't even take it away from you when you die. I mean, it stays in the family. So
yeah, it can't go outside the family.
And it's really funny because once you become a member, all of a sudden you get flooded with stuff like, you can get your insurance through the CMA. You can get your health insurance through the CMA. You can get your phone coverage through the CMA. He's like, what?
Are you still getting all the CDs and the promo shots and all that too?
I don't get the CDs anymore.
I don't get those anymore.
I do get emails though, and they send me music clips. Do you not get those? Well, that's because you suck.
Les, wait, do you have email? Do you have email?
Yeah,
he does. Lester /Thing McDowell at what?
Just
Gmail?
give it to the entire world so now you can get spam. Thanks, Brady.
You're good.
I'll bleep that part out.
Well, anyway, do yourself a favor. Go Google Dry Creek, the TV series, and you'll find episodes of it on YouTube. Go Google Les McDowell Cowboy Poetry, and if you can find a CD on eBay or somewhere else like that, buy it. Do yourself a favor. If you can find Les McDowell's Tales from the Trails book that he wrote out there about cowboy poetry and stuff, buy it. Do yourself a favor.
And The Road Less Traveled.
And The Road Less Traveled is another good one out there. And Les McDowell at Joyland, put that in there and laugh your butt off because those are extremely funny. And then Les McDowell and his kids' TV show that he did. We didn't even touch about that, that he did a few episodes of that on. I mean, seriously, you spend the weekend and entertain yourself. Just put in there Les McDowell into YouTube. Or in IMDb. He's in IMDb.
Yes,
He's
sir.
got a page there.
I got a couple ideas on Dry Creek. We'll chit about. I think we may be able to do a revamp and put it someplace.
I say before you go, the weekend before we leave, we just invite all of our listeners, all your fans, all the old actors, everybody out here, and have the world's biggest bonfire in Parrish.
Oh, that would be nice. We need to do that.
Just burn it all down.
Burn the town down.
Burn the whole town down, except for the church. I'd leave the church. You don't want that bad juju on you, man.
No.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Les, always a pleasure, buddy.
Love
All
you.
right.
Thank
Love
you.
you too, brother.
We are the Big and Wild Outdoors. I'm Braden Gunn. It's Captain Vince Noble and Lester Charles McDowell, sweetest man on the planet. We'll see you guys next week.
Have a good weekend.